All right, good morning, people of YouTube. So we are back again today with probably my favorite deck of the EX3 format. Um, it's a surprise to both you guys and me, but it is Blue Flare. So this is a deck that I've been playtesting, and I've been liking so much more the more and more I play it. I think this deck is absolutely cracked coming into the EX3 format. You have tools to deal with really everything. Um, Examon comes out, and this deck just kind of auto wins against that because you can suspend their whole board. The Examon forcing you to attack into a blocker doesn't really do anything to this deck. Crossheart kind of falls off, which was one of this deck's hardest matchups, and this deck kind of just stuns the ever living shit out of Jesmon and makes it unwinnable for them. This deck just is in a great place coming into the EX3 format. In addition to that, we get this broken new card called Sourai. So let me tell you right now, if this card existed in blue hybrid format, it would not have even been a question. This card would have needed to have been banned. But now that we are in a format like this one, this card is just really good. And it provides specifically Blue Flare with a follow-up to your Metalgreymon, because your Metalgreymon is going to come down, it's going to stun their board. Maybe you evolve into Greymon, swing, stun something else with the Metalgreymon, and then stun something with the Greymon effect. You're stunning like 4 to 5 bodies. And then you have your follow-up turn, where you can activate Sourai. You don't have any materials to save, you don't really have a Metalgreymon follow-up, let's say you didn't have that. You can activate Sourai, just trash the top 4 of one of their Digimon, and then stun everything without a source. So this is a great follow-up. It gives the deck extra stun. It gives it an extra security bomb. This card is just absolutely amazing, and it was really kind of a godsend for blue in general, but specifically this deck. So we'll go ahead and get into the card by card and what's changed from the last time I played the Magna X variant with the Metalgreymon X antibody. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we will go ahead and get into the profile. So for the eggs, I got the 4 Upamon, and then if you want to play a 5th egg, my pick is the BT4 Bukamon. This card says when attacking, you can trash a Digivolution source from the bottom of one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So this can help you trigger Sora Joe and help you kind of stun things early game and give you more Source Strip. This is nice, but I don't think any of the other blue eggs really do anything for you, except maybe the BT10 Babydomon, but I really don't like that card upon playtesting. And then Upamon is just generically broken. Going into the rookies, we got 4 copies of Gaussmon. This card's nuts. Best rookie in the deck. And the ability to play something whenever this is deleted gives this deck amazing follow-up turns. Like if you evolve like this Jamming Vmon in the Raising Area turn 1, and let's say you don't have access to the Kiriha or the Blazing Memory Boost, you can just slam this Gaussmon. On your next turn, maybe slam Gaussmon into security, slam Vmon into security, draw a card off of your Upamon, and then play something like a Greymon to either dig you further or the male Birdramon off the Gaussmon effect, and then you can just kind of pop off. So really like these. These are kind of the bread and butter rookies. You need your rookies to be surviving at least a couple of your opponent's security checks, and the Vmon does that, and the Gaussmon means that even if you don't survive, you get a floater. So that's really nice. For the rest of the rookies, we got the 3 Madoki Beta to block memory gain, and the 1 Jellymon. So Jellymon is something that I'm testing. I'm seeing a lot more players start to use this card for the inheritable effect to bounce a level 3 or lower. I don't know how relevant this is going to be if Crossheart isn't that big of a thing, because I don't think we're going to see cards like Solarmon and Shikurimon as much in the meta. But this is still a good card to, draw cards if you play a Tamer. It's been pulling its weight. I just don't know if I would continue to play this in the list. This is the most iffy card. I might actually cut this to play another Security Bomb option or another Tamer, but right now I'm playing 12 rookies, and I really like that because this deck really wants to rush your opponents down. I'm seeing a lot of decks cut these rookies and go down to like 10, and I think that is kind of a mistake because you really want to see rookies as many turns as possible so that you can really rush your opponent's security stack down. All right, going into level 4s, we got some of the bread and butter. We got the 4 copies of the Greymon and the 4 copies of the Metalgreymon. You have to play 4 of each of these. It's a blue flare deck. These are some of your best cards. Next, we got 3 copies of Missile Alligator. Decardramon is really good. However, you don't need to play 4 of this card. I usually have it when I want it. This is one of the best cards to play off Gaussmon into a wide board. And if you don't have that situation, you kind of hold one of these in your hand until you get a second one. Because you usually want to have one of these for the Decardgreymon play. But this card is really good for the Inheritable as well, for the plus 1000 on all turns. And again, for just drawing you an absolute crap ton of cards whenever he comes down in certain situations. Even if you don't draw like more than 2, having a draw 2 on a 5 cost that is going to swing and then save is really good. So the last blue level 4 I'm playing is the single copy of Kumamon. Nothing really to say here. You want a hybrid to swing in for game in the late matchup. And sometimes, especially since you're casting so many Blazing Memory boosts, you have duplicates of your Memory Tamers. So sometimes it isn't really that big of a deal to just evolve this on top of Kiriha and get a Source Strip. But you never want to put this on Sorajo. Going into the level 5s, Heart and Soul of the deck, 4 copies of Metalgreymon. You come down, you rush, you stun things, you possibly swing twice if you have the Greymon. You stun another thing off the Metalgreymon, and then push comes to shove, you can evolve into Decardgreymon and stun one more thing. The Metalgreymon is absolutely pivotal. You can't play less than 4. And then I like 3 copies of Decardgreymon. I don't like 4 because sometimes you really don't need this card. But it comes up in a lot of situations, so you do want to have this. It's just you don't want it to clump in your hand. And even in the decks that this is kind of bad against, you can still evolve this on top of the Metalgreymon and then get another source under yourself, which is really cool since you have some neat inheritables in this deck, like the Metalgreymon being able to stun something, and this card is just good. The armor purge down in Metalgreymon ensures that your Metalgreymon is going to live some of the times, and that's really nice. So I took out the Metalgreymon X antibody, and I took out the Magnamon X's. The more I tested it, the more I realized that this deck only needs those cards going into the Blue Flare matchup, which again was one of your harder matchups. Now that that deck has been hit by the Banhammer, I don't think Magnamon X is necessary in this iteration of Blue Flare, because if you need to block a bunch of things, you can just stun them out. And that's fine. You really just needed Magnamon X to stop the cross 4 loop, and the cross 4 loop cannot be done with just one cross 4, so good for them. The last Digimon that we are playing in the deck, we got 2 copies of Death Examon, and then the 1 Red Greymon from the starter deck. I still like this Red Greymon from the starter deck. Saving it and putting it under a Kiriha is really funny. Just to kind of, if your opponent is playing around the Metalgreymon by only having 1 Digimon in play, you can kind of surprise attack them with this and then get extra security. It's good, but after all the testing that I've done with this deck, I would not bump this card up to 2, because seeing more than 1 of it would be pretty detrimental to your game plan, because this deck really needs to find its cards quickly, and this card does not search. You cannot Digivolve into it. It does not further that aspect of your gameplay. So I wouldn't play more than 1 of it. But it is another Greymon piece. It is really good, and it is worth including in the list if you want some extra aggression. And then the 2 copies of Death Examon, this is more control. I mentioned how Sourai was a really good follow-up to your Metalgreymon play. So is Death Examon. And even with Crossheart not being as prevalent in the meta, this is still really good because a lot of decks are still playing a lot of Tamers. And one of the matchups that is like a true 50-50 is Bloomlord, and this card is your punishment to Bloomlord. So, yeah, I think it's still necessary at least 2 in the deck. Next, we got our Tamers. I got 4 copies of Kiriha, 2 copies of Sourai. I really want to find room for the Matt and Sora. If you have 8 or more cards in your hand at the start of your main phase, you gain a memory, and if your opponent does, then you gain a memory as well. Also, at the start of your turn, if you unsuspend something, you can bounce a level 3, which is really nice. It helps maintain control. But I think these Tamers are more important. 2 Sourai is the lowest number I would play. I see a lot of people bumping this card up, and I don't know if I agree with that. I do really like this card, but I think 2 is a perfect number. You want to see it, and you want to see it around like the early to mid game, but because you're drawing so much, you're seeing so many cards off the top of your deck, you'll typically find one of these. And then going into the options, we got 4 copies of the most broken memory boost in the game, 4 copies of Blazing Memory Boost. This is your ideal turn 1 play most of the time because it just furthers you, it grabs you pieces, it'll get you a Tamer in play most of the time. And it sets you up to have a memory boost on your following turns. This card's just really good, and the only reason you would play less copies is if you are combining Blue Flare with another archetype, so that you wouldn't hit the 6, or if in your 6 cards you wouldn't hit the 2 Blue Flare cards and the Kiriha statistically. But I don't think that is correct. I think if you're playing Blue Flare, you should just kind of play Blue Flare. So 4 copies of this I don't think is debatable. Next, we got a couple one-ofs. I got 1 of Ice Wall, because I'm only allowed to play 1. And then 1 Cock Breath and 1 Plasma Decardra Launcher. So the more and more I playtest the Plasma Decardra Launcher, the more I realize this card is just kind of insane, especially coming into a meta where we have Bloom Lord with Hydramon. This is basically the same thing as Cock Breath, except if you're playing it from your hand, it only works on level 6 or higher, which is typically what you're wanting to use this card for anyway. If it comes out of security, it still bounces level 6 or lowers, as well as, let's just, Cassidy's Breath, main effect, just return something to the hand. So this is still really good in security against like Metalgreymon X. And having these cards against that matchup can sometimes break them. And I think if I was going to cut the Jellymon, I would probably include another Plasma Decardra Launcher in the list. I would go 2 copies of this, and then the 1 Cassidy, because that would make my Bloom Lord matchup a lot better, and it would still help against like Weregaruru and stuff like that, which are Bloom Lord and Weregaruru are expected to be the best decks coming into EX3, and after testing against them, I can kind of confirm that this one and those 2 are going to be the 3 best decks of the format. Unless Security Control does something stupid, but it's North America. We always have the potential for that to happen. But yeah, that's it for the BT10 options, and then the 1 card for EX3 that we include in the list is the 3 copies of Sourai. You need to be playing 3 or 4 of this card. I don't know if I want to play 4. I'm going to continue testing it and find out. But I think this card is absolutely cracked. It's a great security check. It's great from your hand because it only costs 4 memory. This is a really efficient way to pass turn and stay on the offensive because you can just kind of swing with your dudes and then make it so they can't swing over you while memory choking them. And it's just really nice. It's a great offensive card. It's a great defensive card. If we had 4 of this and 4 Ice Wall in the format, I would cry. That would just be absurd. It kind of feels like Ice Wall did whenever Ice Wall came out. Obviously Ice Wall is more broken, but Sourai is not to be underestimated. If you're playing against Blue Flare, you need to acknowledge that they have access to this new tool. And if you don't, you will lose a game because of it, I promise. So that's the deck profile, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.